Hey everybody, this is Jexy with the Systems Alliance, and in this video I'm going to be doing a spoiler review of the new Star Wars film, Solo, A Star Wars Story. So I want to first start off with just the name. Solo, A Star Wars Story. So I like how Star Wars is trying to do this thing where they have a Star Wars story in it. Solo, though, I don't know, it just seems a little bit awkward. I would have gone with Han Solo myself. This doesn't make me like or dislike the movie any more or less. It seemed just a little awkward to say. That's all. Moving forward from that, though, I did kind of like how instead of an opening crawl, they kind of kept with the same text of a galaxy far, far away and gave a little background on what's going on this planet that Han is currently living on. So you learn that this planet called Corellia is lawless, and seems like we've kind of heard that before or something similar to it, like a planet that's just kind of a dump in the Star Wars galaxy. I guess the only thing I didn't really like about that is that, granted it's not canon anymore, but, if you go back into the books and all that stuff, they never really mentioned Corellia like that, so I'm not sure why they have it like that. That's kind of nitpicking though. So once again, that doesn't really have much to do with the movie, that just has to do more with Star Wars. So moving on from that, if you haven't seen the movie, what you should know is that by time we meet Solo, he's already grown up. What I liked in the prequels and what I liked in Rogue One is that you got to know what makes those characters those characters. So in other words, in the prequels, regardless of whether you like them or not, you do kind of get to see Obi-Wan growing up from, this really young Jedi until the end. And you definitely get to see, since it is focusing on the Darth Vader story, how he became Darth Vader. You see him from a child. You see what he had to go through when he was a child, growing on up through adolescence, seeing what was going on in his mind, in his life, and all the way up until Padme dies. Regardless of how poorly the dialogue is acted or how poorly the script is written, you still understand the basic elements that made Darth Vader, and those other characters as they grew up. With Rogue One and Jyn Erso, you see what happens to her as a child. You see why she would be the way she is now, because there were traumatic events, and that shapes a person. So it makes sense. And what I was looking forward to with Solo is finding out why Han Solo is Han Solo. What makes Han Solo come back at the end near the trench run in Star Wars? What makes Han Solo kind of this womanizing, don't trust anyone kind of guy, do things on my own? I want to know. I want to know what makes Han Solo like that. And in this movie, we don't learn that. When it starts, he's already basically Han Solo. He's being portrayed as the same guy we've all known and loved for a while now. So it kind of disappointed me all throughout the movie that I never really got to know Han Solo. I wanted to see a Han Solo movie to learn about Han Solo, and I didn't do that. That's very similar to what happened with The Last Jedi. I gave The Force Awakens a pass because it was a lot of fun. A lot of cool stuff happened. It was basically a retreading of the original Star Wars movie, but it was still fun. I still enjoyed it. I still got enjoyment out of it, but I didn't really learn about the characters too much. And my hope going into The Last Jedi was that they would finally be explained. I don't know why Rey is the Mary Sue character she is, and that she's all powerful and she can't do anything wrong and she always wins when she shouldn't. Without any training, without any real knowledge of the Force, she just wins. And they never explain why in The Force Awakens. But they don't explain why in The Last Jedi either. And that's when I really get a little bit tired of The Last Jedi. I didn't learn anything. I didn't learn anything about Poe, really. He's a hothead. Cool, we've seen that before. Tell me about him. Why? I don't know. I still don't know anything about Finn. I don't know why he's the way he is. I'd love to have some background on that, just about the stormtroopers in general and what happened with him and where they are now in the galaxy in terms of, okay, well, they're not using clones. Yeah, maybe we can find this stuff in like a comic book or TV show somewhere, but I would like to see why in the movies. Explain to me why. And then with Kylo Ren, I still don't know what's going on with him. Snoke, what was that? You have this big bad character and then you kill him off. I have no idea who he even was. Was he that powerful? Was he not? Certainly didn't seem that intimidating. I didn't even get to know him. The Emperor, he was intimidating. The best part about the prequels is the Emperor, because he's awesome and he's intimidating and he's super evil and he's super powerful. Snoke, Don't know anything about him. So Lucasfilm right now, led by Kathleen Kennedy, is continuing down that road to where I don't get to know any of these characters. I don't get told anything. And in Solo, that's exactly what you get. It's more like a story in Solo's life that happens maybe a third of the way through his life or something like that. That's it. You don't really learn anything about him. But back to the movie. They're on this lawless planet. They're trying to escape, or it sounds like they've been wanting to escape for a really long time. So they get captured. He goes to meet this Lady Proxima. As soon as she comes out of the water, the first thing I'm thinking is the Men in Black cockroach bug from the first movie. Kind of reminded me of that. Seems super alien. All the other aliens are talking in their own dialect. They got the subtitles and everything. And it just kind of got ruined for me when this alien bug starts talking, and it just sounds like an old grandma. I don't know why they didn't keep some weird alien voice or with some subtitles or something like that. So that was kind of disappointing. That's kind of what it reminded me of some of the bad parts about the prequels where they would do that. Why not just have a different language? And really, they had a different language. But then they made this, the weirdest of all aliens on screen, not use it. So that didn't really make any sense. And apparently sunlight is what's deadly to her. So I don't know if she's some sort of vampire bug. But anyway, they get to escaping. Mediocre car chase, nothing to write home about, or space car chase, whatever you want to call it. And then they say, hey, we're leaving together. And you see people being separated. And it reminds you of X-Men, which is really just reminding you of the real Nazi concentration camps where they would separate families and everything like that. But it just reminded me of X-Men because that seemed very similar how they were doing in both of those movies, even though they're both based on real life events. It was just, okay, so they couldn't come up with anything original for the Star Wars movie, so they're just copying this particular thing. And so you were hoping, okay, I hope these two don't get separated. And of course, they're outlaws right now, so the law's looking for them. They end up getting separated. Okay, they get separated. And he ends up making it through, and he wants to sign up to join the Empire. They're about to put him in the infantry, and he says, well, I want to be a pilot. Best the galaxy has ever seen, or whatever. I guess my only question to that is, why do you want to be a pilot? Why do you want to not just be a pilot? Why do you want to be the best pilot? We never find out. We never learn this. There's no flashback. And because they didn't start when he was a kid, we don't know anything about that either. So we don't know anything about his dad. We really don't know anything about his mom. Were they taken from him like this? Were they sold into slavery? Is there a reason why I can empathize with Han and what he's feeling right now? I wish there was, but there isn't. So this was maybe my first cringe-worthy moment, is when they give him his name. He doesn't come up with his name. To me, a Han Solo thing is making something up himself. He doesn't do that. But what happens is a weird Imperial, recruiting officer is the one who gives him his name. He says, oh, what's your name, kid? Han. And last name, it doesn't have one. He's alone. So as he's typing it in, he says, Han Solo. And it's just... So there's a few reasons I have a problem with how that all went down. First of all, the line was delivered poorly, and it just seems really, really lame. Get that out of the way. My bigger problem is that the Empire gave him this name. Now, he's obviously no friend of the Empire, and yet he keeps the name throughout the entire original trilogy, throughout the entirety of any movie he's in. They keep the name Han Solo attached to him. That doesn't really make any sense, because if he defected from the Imperial Army, which he does, and ends up fighting against them or stealing from them or whatever he's doing during all this time, why wouldn't he change his name? Why would he keep using the same name? That would be a dead giveaway. That'd be something easy that the Empire could find out and they could hunt him down. All they'd have to do is ask where Han Solo is. It's the only name he uses, and they're the ones who gave him the name. Had he given them a false name or something like that, then they wouldn't have been able to track him. But he gave him not only his first name, which was real, they made up his last names. Just ask for Han Solo. Where'd the Han Solo guy go? They could find him. It just doesn't make any sense. It reminds me slightly of when James Bond knows he's in a situation where someone might know his name and he still drops the name James Bond. But when he does it, you're like, man, is James Bond being cocky right now? Phew, man, is that going to get him in trouble? That's what you're thinking of. That's what you're worried about. That's what gives the moment a bit of intensity and makes you worried about the character, or gives you enjoyment because he is being that cocky. Whereas Han Solo, keeping the name, it just doesn't make any logistical sense. And on top of that, It's the same thing as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He doesn't go by Obi-Wan. Why? Because Ben Kenobi is a little bit hard to find. No one knows an Obi-Wan. They know Ben, though. So clearly in the Star Wars universe, they already acknowledge that, yeah, maybe you should change your name after that. Maybe you should go into hiding like a Yoda. So I really don't understand why this is the way they chose to give him that name. But moving on. So a few years pass and he's in the Imperial Army and they're fighting. This was actually one of my favorite parts about the movie because it was really, really ground level, but ground level on the Empire side. Something that I'm not sure we've ever really seen, and definitely not seen to this extent. I mean, it's dirty, it's very warlike. It's probably the most warlike scene that Star Wars has ever had. I mean, it's literally trench warfare. They got trenches and they're fighting and people are dying all around them. I really liked how they did it. They made it real. They made it a little gritty. And that's when he meets Beckett. The one thing I liked about this movie is they made Han Solo the cocky Han Solo that we like, and he ends up using that to get back in with them. He finds out that they're not part of the Imperial Army, that they're not working for them. They're trying to steal from them, and he wants to join their crew eventually, mostly because he wants to be a pilot. So I like that part. But then, of course, they give him up and they said, okay, we're going to feed you to the beast. As soon as they said that, I was just like, and it's Chewie. I know it's Chewie. I don't like being able to see everything that's going to happen in the movie. I knew as soon as they were asking for his name and he said only Han, I'm like, great, this guy's going to name him because that happens in a million other movies and it's going to be lame. Here, I knew that it was going to be Chewie because who else could it be? Why would it be another beast? No, Chewie's on the poster, whatever, and it's like, this is how they meet. So that part of it I didn't really like. I didn't like how predictable this movie was. I wanted to learn something new, not be able to do a paint by numbers. And hey, here's how he gets his name. Here's how he meets Chewie. Here's how he gets the Millennium Falcon. All this stuff that we already know in some way he actually attains in his life. I just wanted to know a little bit more about him in particular. So they're in there fighting, and one of the things that I really just did not like, and that kind of went against, once again, what the original films had, was when Han Solo acknowledges that he can understand a little bit of Wookiee, which is fine because he does, and obviously learns more later on, but that he speaks it as well. He never speaks it, and he doesn't need to speak it. One, because he sounds stupid, but two, because Chewie understands the basic dialect, English in this case, that Han and everyone else speaks. We know that he understands it because he's in the prequels and he understands it. This isn't a new thing for him. So I don't understand why they had him do that. That didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So they get out of there. Didn't really make a lot of sense to me how Chewie, even though he's smart, wasn't able to understand that the bolt was loose. So he could have just punched it himself. He didn't need to throw Han into it a bunch of times and then punch it himself. Just didn't really make a lot of sense. And I don't understand how the stormtroopers up above didn't realize that that thing was about to collapse and stood right above it. Either way, I did like the part when they get out and they're waving at the plane. He promised Chewie we're going to get off this planet, out of this war zone. And he shows them. He said he was going to come with them no matter what. They were like, there's no way. And he wins. So that was a good Han Solo moment. That was a classic Han Solo moment. So the crew's together, and I really like the crew. They stop. It seems like we're starting to get to know each other. There's Val, who's a strong female character, and Rio, who's this alien that seems pretty charming, getting to know him. And I was really getting into these characters. They end up killing them almost immediately when Infus Nest and her band of riders, or whatever they are, they say, well, watch out for Infus Nest, watch out for this bandit, basically. They do the same type of jobs we do. They go after these Imperial hit jobs and try and steal it, or whatever it is that they're going for. They're just like us, band of raiders. So they set that up. It sounds like Infus Nest is going to be this big bad villain. And I guess here's one of my other big problems with it. It just seems like bad writing because they end up making Infus Nest a good guy. It's a girl underneath, but they make her one of the good ones. But yet she killed all those people before, and they could have had the conversation, hey, I'm on the same side as you. We're on the same side. We're both trying to steal this stuff. Let's see what we can do. But they didn't, they came in and killed everyone. And then at the end, they're supposed to be friends, and I don't understand why there's not more animosity. He killed their friends, and it just didn't really make a lot of sense to me. It would have made more sense if they left her bad, but that's not the direction they chose to go. So fast forwarding, they end up meeting up with Kira, and you would think, oh wow, this has been the entire point of Han doing everything he's done to try and get back to her and rescue her, and he finds her. And I wasn't expecting it. I almost expected it to be like a mirage or like a fake out in some way, but no, it's her. And she obviously has some sort of life debt to Paul Bettany's character. She's got the tattoo and everything. She's branded, I guess you want to say. They keep going on throughout the movie about how I've done things. I'm not the same person I was before, or I've seen a lot now. Whatever it is, we want to know what happened. We need to know what happened, because if we don't know what happened, then her actions don't mean as much to anything she does to Han. And this is another problem I have with the movie. I don't learn anything. We never find out any of the things she's done. They establish she's done some stuff. Well, what does that mean? You're obviously with a kind of a rough and tumble group here with, Paul Bettany's character, and there's obviously some stuff that maybe you've done, but shouldn't seem to have, a ton of battle scars or anything like that. So what has she done? I don't know. I don't know anything about the character. So when at the end, I'm expecting her to betray Han, and it looks like she's about to, but then she actually kills Paul Bettany's character. I'm like, well, okay. So you not only didn't betray Han, you saved his life. And I guess, maybe it was to benefit her own cause or whatever, but we don't even know why she has that cause. I don't even know why that's a thing she wants to even do. But Han Solo's not betrayed. So the fact that he's supposed to be this, trust no one type of guy and all that, it holds no weight because he wasn't betrayed. Why is he this trust no one, womanizer? He must have been hurt by a woman earlier in his life. He wasn't. She didn't hurt him. She didn't go with him, but they don't really discuss that. So once again, I don't learn anything with this movie, and that's what kills me, because that's about the only thing I wanted to do with a Han Solo movie. One of the things I did like about the movie, I did like the look of it. I like the costuming. Paul Bettany's Howl's Moving Castle floating ship, or whatever you want to call it, yacht. That's pretty cool. But this whole movie seems very surface level. I just don't get a lot out of these characters. Even when Woody Harrelson's crew dies, he's supposed to be in love with this woman that's supposed to be one of his buddies or whatever, and he gets over it in about 5 minutes. For whatever reason, even the characters didn't care about the other characters, which made it difficult for me as an audience member to care about the characters. So fast forwarding in the movie once again, we go and meet Lando. They talk about the card game, and it looks like this is when he finally gets the Millennium Falcon, and Lando cheats, which I don't mind that he cheated. That seems to be within his character. But what doesn't seem to make sense is that Han let him get away with it. He saw that he had the little thing pumping out whatever cards he needed right there in his wrist, and he obviously uses that to his advantage later on at the end of the movie, where he does the same thing, but he takes it away from him, and he does win the Millennium Falcon. But I don't know why he didn't call him out on it earlier. It just seemed a little weird that he didn't. I guess that's more nitpicking, this particular thing. But it was something that had me wondering, well, how come he didn't just do that? Why didn't he do that? So just to go into the characters a little bit, I never bought Alden Ehrenreich as someone who was Han Solo. I know it's an impossible role to fill. You can't be Harrison Ford. You just can't be Harrison Ford. No one has that kind of charm, and if they do, they don't have that type of charm for the Solo character. So while I didn't ever feel like I was actually watching Han Solo too much, I did feel like his performance overall was decent. He wasn't trying to copy Harrison Ford, because that's impossible. He was kind of trying to do his own thing, which, take it or leave it, I guess. But Donald Glover as Lando was pretty much him copying the original performance as much as possible. And it works. It's not bad. I can't say I like it more or less than the Solo performance, but I can say that I did buy him as Lando more. He seemed more on the nose. He seemed to be like, yep, that's Lando. Whereas when you look at Han Solo, you go, Is that Han Solo? So there was that. So now I gotta talk about Lando's robot pal, L337, which, if you guys didn't get it, they're spelling Leet. So, seemed like a joke that would be good for, say, 1998 or 2002 or something like that. Oh, Leet speak, get it? I think it's a little past its mark in hitting that joke. But I do have to say, the character itself, I did not like at all. This was one of my least favorite parts of the movies. It was way too preachy. And the fun thing about Star Wars is that it's Star Wars. It's not a huge political, preachy statement that needs to hit you over the head with a sledgehammer to drive a point home. No, the great thing about Star Wars, just look at the prequels. George Lucas said that the prequels and the rise of the Emperor were akin to, at that time, George W. Bush rising to power in the United States. So maybe he was making a political point. But the great thing about it is, one, it didn't seem like it. Two, it was woven into the story, so you never felt like it. You weren't being hit over the head like, here's this political point. Don't you get it? There was none of that, and it was kind of evergreen. The same thing happened with Rome and the rise of their empire. Same thing happened with a bunch of other countries over the history of the world. And it's something that we're still worried about today that could happen with our democracy, and it's something that's going to be worried about generations from now. So that is something that really applies to everyone in all walks of life. With L3, I know a bunch of people online are calling it, Robot Lives Matter too, and one, that's kind of what it is, but at the same time, it's also offensive to real stuff that's going on now with real human beings and their actual plights in today's society. This is a robot. They never got into the whole AI thing in Star Wars, so we don't know how to treat them. It's not like in Mass Effect where they're figuring out what is a soul. Does this unit have a soul? It's not like in other movies where they do something similar. It's not like you go on this journey about a robot who has feelings or whatever and develops intelligence on their own. They make it clear that it's just a robot, and it doesn't make sense that any of the trash can type robots would have supreme AI. Who would build a robot that just does one function over and over? A brain. Why would that be a thing that they do? It doesn't make sense. So it really makes sense when they're taking off their inhibitor chips or, whatever you want to call it, the things that make them slaves, I guess. And that somehow allows all these robots to think freely. And what robots want to do is be free. I mean, it's literally the opposite of why robots were designed. And it doesn't make sense that you would make a stupid little trash can robot have full intelligence when you only need it to do a basic function. Move around and press a couple buttons. And the fact that they come off so easily, what are they, like big magnets that you can just knock off by going like this? They're more likely to lose that chip rummaging around. I mean, we've seen enough Star Wars to know that the droids run into a bunch of stuff, and if that's all it takes to knock this inhibitor chip or whatever you want to call it off, then why does that not happen more often? It shouldn't. I feel like it should be something like deep inside them that you really have to, get in there with the screwdriver and whatnot to get out. But it's not the case in this movie. And at that point, it really lost me in terms of what this is supposed to be. At the same time, you have actual slavery with the Wookiees and everything like that. And yeah, we want to break them free. Chewie breaks them free. That's great. That worked. He ended up coming back anyway, even though they were trying to get him to come with him. He's like, nah, I got my crew over here. So that was all great. But that's also a living being. It's not a robot. So you can't compare the two. And that's what was a little bit insulting with the L3 character. A lot of people were saying, Lando is androgynous, whatever. None of that came across the screen to me. I didn't really care about any of that stuff at all. People were saying like, oh, he's into his robot. They do stuff. It was just jokes to me. Once again, didn't really care about any of that. His robot friend dies. She gets shot up and everything. And yeah, why wouldn't you be upset at that? Maybe you should be, right? Even though it's a friend, it's a robot friend. You don't want it to die and whatever. That didn't bother me at all. It was just the whole preachy as all heck message that this robot was trying to hammer home. So before I move on, I just have to finish by saying the L3 character to me was the closest that we've gotten since Jar Jar Binks to a Jar Jar Binks type character. It was kind of one-dimensional, and unfortunately when it was on screen, that's the only thing that you could focus on, because for myself, they were both so annoying that I couldn't focus in on anything else. So she blows up. That's fine. Lando breaks down over her loss. I thought that was fine. And I thought it was cool that they basically used her brain and the maps, plugged her into the ship, and now she's part of the ship. So she lives on through the ship. So I like that. Then we get to the Kessel Run, because once again, they can't come up with anything original. It's just like, hey, remember the Kessel Run? Here it is. No? Okay. It was exactly what I thought it would be. There was nothing special or anything. So, okay. The monster was cool. I like that it was kind of a space monster. So that was pretty interesting. The scene where they escape and use the fuel blast or explosion or whatever it is, super fuel, to launch the Millennium Falcon out of the black hole. It was okay, but we've seen it before. We saw it in Star Trek '09. So I wasn't really blown away by it because we've seen it before, done better in other sci-fi movies. That's not really something that you want to say about Star Wars, that, oh, this other sci-fi movie did it better than Star Wars. The part I did like, and which was probably, for me, one of the most Han Solo parts in the movie, and done organically, is when he first gets to captain the ship. He ends up doing it with Chewie. The first time those two are together piloting the ship. I thought that was a really good part. It's a good Star Wars moment. I liked it. The main thing is that it was done organically. It didn't feel like it was forced like everything else was in the movie. My other favorite Han Solo part is once they've landed on the planet, Han Solo says, oh, I can just snap my fingers and you guys will be surrounded because I have all this backup, and then the ship flies away. And he backs up and he says, oh, yeah, continue with what you were doing. To me, that's a great Han Solo moment. And I thought the actor who played him, Alden Ehrenreich, did his very best in those moments. So to me, those were hits, but there were still a lot of other misses. As I've been saying, this movie is very predictable. And another one of those moments is when Woody Harrelson's character Beckett betrays Han Solo. You kind of do the math. Well, if it's not Kira, okay, who's going to be? It's obviously not Chewie. So, okay, of course it's Beckett. He's the one who's been saying, don't trust anyone throughout the whole movie. I've seen this before in other movies. And once again, I've seen it done better in other movies. So I really wish that they had either gone with something original that I haven't seen before, or done it at least really well. And unfortunately to me, they didn't do either of those. Once again, another predictable moment, even though I felt the moment was a little bit tense when Kira had the blade to Han and you thought that she was going to kill him. In the moment, you think that there's a chance, but then you realize, well, Han doesn't die or even really get hurt in the original trilogy. He's not hurt from any of that. So obviously, she ends up betraying Paul Bettany's character, Dryden Voss. So to me, predictable, but not a bad moment. But then she kind of waffled back and forth, and I might as well just get to it now. I kind of already touched on the fact that she didn't end up betraying Han, so there was no reason for Han to be like the way he is. I didn't learn anything. But I will talk about the reveal at the end. She decides to take over the crime business over there from Dryden Voss. And who should she see on the screen? Darth Maul. That was an awesome reveal. I did not think I would see Darth Maul. And as a lot of us know from what happens with the prequels, he gets cut in half, but he doesn't actually die. He ends up getting robot legs and all this stuff. And so he ends up surviving via the dark side and through hate and everything. He just wouldn't let his body die. So that was pretty cool to see him again. Didn't expect that. But then I was let down again when he lights his lightsaber. So as soon as Darth Maul lights his lightsaber, the first thing my brain is thinking is, where is he? Is he about to fight someone? Is there someone in front of him that he's going to kill? What's going on? And the answer is none of that. He's just trying to be intimidating, but he's already a Sith. He doesn't need to be intimidating any more than he already is by being a Sith Lord. So I really didn't understand what the heck they were doing with any of that. He's already a Sith Lord. He doesn't need to light his lightsaber to be intimidating, and it's over a video. So what's he going to do with the lightsaber? He can't hit her with it or anything. So I really didn't understand why he needed to do that. It just seems stupid to me. When he does light it, you can see that, oh, it's the lightsaber that he stole in the other canon that's going on in Star Wars. So I guess that's cool. It's a little Easter egg, but he didn't need to light it. If they had more light on him to begin with, he may have not had to do it. If he just had it in his hand or something, I don't know. But it seemed really unnecessary to me. And once again, I didn't learn anything about Kira. Why does she want to work for a Sith Lord? That didn't seem to be her character when her and Han were on the planet together growing up. So why did she decide to do this? For her own gain? What gain? Why doesn't she run away with Han? Han's never caught, and he's using his own name that the Empire gave him. So I really didn't understand that whole sequence at all when she chooses to go bad. Didn't make any sense to me. There was no reasoning behind it. All this stuff, oh, I've done things. What have you done? I still don't know. You've done nothing so far. You killed your evil boss. That's not even bad. So overall, I give this film a 5 out of 10. I think that's pretty fair. There was some stuff I liked. There's a lot of things I didn't like, but it was done well in the sense of the filmography was good. The colors were good. I didn't mind anything about that. It was just the characters in the story that were bad, and that's what makes it a middle of the road for me, a 5 out of 10. So let me know what you think. What would you give it out of 10? Would you give it a 5? Did you love it? Would you give it a 9 or a 10 out of 10? Or even a 7 or an 8? Would you give it a 1 or a 2 out of 10? Did you hate it? And if you loved it, tell me why in the comments. And if you hated it, let me know. Of course, a lot of people aren't seeing this movie, so if you haven't seen it, go see it, and then you can decide for yourself. I honestly thought it would be worse leading up to it than it ended up being, but there were just some big main plot points that I had issues with, similar to how people had issues with The Last Jedi, even though it looked great. So let me know what you thought, and we'll see you later.